The party was in full swing, laughter and music filling the air. I weaved through the crowd, clutching my plate tightly, determined not to let anything ruin this rare social outing for me. As I approached the food table, a familiar voice cut through the din. "Looks like you're at war with the salad bar," Oliver said, grinning. I turned to face him, his striking features instantly recognizable. "You could say that. One wrong move, and I'm heading to the ER, I replied. Rolling my eyes, Oliver's brow furrowed in curiosity. An ER visit for a salad? Now I'm intrigued. "Severe shellfish allergy," I explained, gesturing to the seafood-laden dishes. "One tiny shrimp, and it's game over for me." Rather than the usual polite nod, Oliver leaned in closer. "That must be a constant battle. How do you manage?" His genuine interest caught me off guard. Most people just shrugged it off as a dietary preference. But Oliver seemed genuinely invested in understanding my struggle. We spent the next hour engrossed in conversation, the party fading into the background. Oliver's magnetic charm drew me in, his wit and humor putting me at ease in a way I hadn't felt in years. When he asked for my number, I didn't hesitate. As I left the party that night, a strange sense of excitement bubbled within me. For once, my allergy hadn't defined the interaction. Oliver had seen past it, connecting with me on a deeper level, and I couldn't wait to see where this unexpected connection would lead. "Corporate gigs and shellfish allergies were quite the pair," Oliver joked, clinking glasses. "Who knew misery could find company?" I teased back, savoring the rich Cabernet. Our weekly wine nights had become a ritual, a chance to unwind from the daily grind. Oliver's job in corporate sales meant long hours and endless meetings, while I navigated the minefield of social events with my allergy. "At least you get to escape that office prison during your events," Oliver said, making air quotes. "I'm trapped like a rat on a wheel." I shrugged, swirling the wine. "The novelty wears off when you're constantly dodging shrimp platters and crab cakes." Oliver leaned back, studying me intently. "You know, we should do something crazy, get out of our ruts." "Like what? Join the circus?" I laughed. "Why not?" His eyes sparkled with mischief. "We'd be a hit, the allergic acrobat and the disillusioned businessman." In that moment, staring into Oliver's eyes, I felt a reckless thrill. He had a way of making the impossible seem wildly appealing. Over the following weeks, our hangouts became more adventurous. Oliver would show up unannounced, whisking me away for impromptu hikes or late-night city explorations. My quiet, reserved friends watched in bewilderment as I emerged from my self-imposed cocoon. "Who is this new Kira, and what have you done with our wallflower friend?" Ellis teased during one of our monthly brunches. I simply smiled, my eyes sparkling. Oliver happened. With each daring escapade, I fell deeper under Oliver's spell. His spontaneity and magnetic charm lured me away from my familiar, safe routines. And I didn't want to go back. But even as our connection deepened, there were moments when Oliver's true nature peeked through the charming facade. Like when Ellis mentioned her recent engagement, and Oliver scoffed. "Marriage is just a corporate con to sell overpriced rocks and dresses," he remarked flippantly. I brushed it off at the time, too enamored to see the warning signs. Little did I know that callous comment was just a glimpse into the darkness that lay ahead. "Kira, we've been treading water for a while now. I need something more concrete," Oliver said, his tone serious. I froze, my wine glass halfway to my lips. "Concrete? Like a bridge or a skyscraper?" I joked cautiously. Oliver shook his head, an uncharacteristic intensity in his eyes. "I'm talking about us. This," he gestured between us. "It needs to evolve." My heart raced as the implications sank in. Oliver wanted to take our relationship to the next level, something I'd never imagined possible with my allergy and social struggles. "What did you have in mind?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Oliver reached across the table, taking my hand in his. "I want to introduce you to my parent official." The words hung in the air, their weight pressing down on me. Meeting the parents was a huge step, one I never thought I'd take. But with Oliver, everything seemed achievable. "Are you sure?" I searched his face for any hint of doubt. "Your parents might not be too thrilled with your choice of partner." He squeezed my hand reassuringly. "They'll love you, Kira, just like I do." Those 3 words shattered my reservations into pieces. I flung myself into his arms, tears of joy streaming down my cheeks. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of planning and preparation. Oliver insisted on keeping things low-key, eschewing the traditional over-the-top proposal. "Let's do it our way," he said with a wink. So one crisp autumn day, we found ourselves strolling along the lake's edge, the golden leaves crunching underfoot. Oliver stopped abruptly, dropping to one knee and producing a simple diamond ring. "Kira, you've shown me what it means to truly live. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" I could only nod, rendered speechless by the depth of emotion swirling within me. As Oliver slipped the ring on my finger, I knew my life would never be the same. But even in that perfect moment, a flicker of unease gnawed at me. A part of me couldn't shake the feeling that I was being swept away by Oliver's current, with no idea where it would ultimately lead. Little did I know the turbulent waters were only just beginning to churn. Why work when you can focus on the fun stuff? "Like us?" Oliver suggested, winking as he poured another glass of wine. I froze, the stem of my glass clutched tightly. "You want me to quit my job?" He shrugged nonchalantly. "It's not like you need the money. With my career really taking off, we can afford for you to take it easy." My mind raced, trying to process his casual suggestion. Quitting my job had never even been a consideration. It was my identity, my independence. I don't know, Oliver," I stammered, suddenly feeling off balance. "My job is important to me." Oliver set his glass down, his expression softening as he took my hand. "Babe, I'm just thinking about our future. Starting a family, building a life together. Doesn't that sound amazing?" His words tugged at my heart, painting a picture of domestic bliss. A life free from corporate stress, focused solely on nurturing our love and any children we might have. "You make it sound so perfect," I murmured, my resolve wavering. Oliver leaned in closer, his cologne enveloping me. "It can be, Kira. All you have to do is trust me." In that moment, gazing into the depths of his eyes, I found myself powerless to resist. Oliver's magnetism had me spellbound, his vision of our future too tantalizing to deny. So I quit my job, trading in my power suits for cozy loungewear. At first it was a thrilling novelty, long, lazy mornings followed by romantic lunches with Oliver. But as the weeks ticked by, a gnawing sense of isolation began to creep in. Oliver's career was taking off, keeping him away for longer stretches with important meetings and business trips. Our romantic lunches dwindled to hurried dinners, if he made it home at all. "It's just a busy season," he'd assure me with a weary smile, "but it'll be worth it in the end." I'd nod and force a smile, trying to ignore the growing distance between us, trying to convince myself that this was all just a temporary sacrifice. But with each missed date night and forgotten promise, doubt began to cloud my mind. Had I given up too much? Traded my independence for an illusion of marital bliss? As I lay awake at night, the deafening silence a constant reminder of Oliver's absence, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd made a terrible mistake. "You threw quite the housewarming. What's next? A royal banquet?" Oliver quipped, smiling at the woman beside him. I studied her carefully, taking in her sleek figure and immaculate makeup. Sandra, Oliver's colleague from the office. "Just wait till you see our anniversary shindig." Sandra laughed, her gaze briefly flickering towards me. A knot twisted in my stomach as I watched their easy banter. Sandra's familiarity with Oliver seemed to extend beyond just professional boundaries. "Drinks, anyone?" I offered, forcing a smile as I held up the tray of cocktails. Oliver draped an arm around my shoulders, planting a kiss on my cheek. "You're the hostess with the mostest, babe." His affection did little to ease my discomfort. As the party wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that an invisible line had been crossed, one I was blissfully unaware of until now. Whenever Sandra was near, Oliver's body language shifted ever so slightly. He angled himself towards her, his smiles seeming to linger a beat too long on her face. And Sandra was no better, her laughter carrying just a hint too much delight at Oliver's jokes. An inside humor I wasn't privy to. At one point, I caught them huddled in the kitchen, their heads bent close in conspiratorial whispers. As I approached, they sprang apart. Sandra's cheeks flushed as she brushed past me without a word. "Everything okay?" I asked Oliver, trying to keep my tone light. He waved a dismissive hand. "Just work stuff. You know how it is." But I didn't know. Not really. The world of corporate politics and backroom dealings was as foreign to me as Sandra's polished veneer. As the guests began trickling out, my mind was a whirlpool of doubts and suspicions. Had I been naive, blind to whatever was brewing right under my nose? Oliver's arm snaked around my waist, jarring me from my thoughts. Quite the successful night, wouldn't you say? His breath tickled my ear, laced with the faint scent of Sandra's perfume. I managed a tight smile, my gut churning with unease. Yeah, successful. Little did I know that housewarming party was merely the opening act. The real drama was just beginning to unfold. Late again? Sandra must have a never-ending to-do list, I remarked, not masking the sarcasm as Oliver blustered through the door. He shot me an annoyed look. Oh, come on, Kira, it's work. The same excuse, over and over. Lately, it seemed work was the only thing occupying Oliver's time and mind. I bit back a retort, busying myself with clearing the dinner dishes. As I loaded the dishwasher, I noticed Oliver's phone lying on the counter, a notification flickering across the screen. Against my better judgment, I swiped it open, and felt the blood drain from my face. There, plain as day, was a photo of Oliver and Sandra. Locked in a passionate embrace, her fingers tangled in his hair, his hands roaming places they shouldn't. The dishes clattered to the floor as the phone slipped from my trembling grasp. Oliver whirled around, his eyes widening in shock. Kira, I can explain. White-hot rage surged through me, obliterating all reason. Explain what exactly? I spat, scooping up the phone and thrusting it towards him. This little office romance you've been carrying on? Oliver flinched, his expression a sickening mix of guilt and defiance. It's not what you think. Sandra and I, we just got carried away one night. Cut the crap, Oliver. I could barely recognize my own voice, ragged with fury. How long has this been going on? How many times did you sneak around behind my back? He opened his mouth, but I barreled on, unleashing months of pent-up doubts and suspicions. All those late nights, the lingering smiles, the inside jokes, it was all real, wasn't it? While I sat here playing the dutiful little housewife, you were off screwing your coworker. Oliver's face contorted, and for a sickening moment I thought he might strike me. But then his expression settled into a chilling calm. You think you're so innocent in all this? His voice was laced with venom. Always moping around, never appreciating what I've sacrificed for you. Maybe if you put in a little effort, I wouldn't have strayed. His words sliced through me like razors, each one drawing blood. Suddenly, I felt small and pathetic, the wronged wife who had driven her husband into another woman's arms. Oliver stepped closer, his face mere inches from mine. This isn't over, Kira. Not by a long shot. As he stormed out, the apartment seemed to close in around me. The life I thought I knew lay in shattered pieces at my feet. And in that moment, I realized Oliver's true nature had been staring me in the face all along. I just didn't want to see it. You think I don't know what you're up to? Oliver's voice had a chilling calmness as he fiddled with a mug in the kitchen. I froze, my heart pounding. What are you talking about? He turned to face me, his expression unreadable. Playing the victim, trying to turn everyone against me with your little pity act. I met his gaze steadily, challenging his accusation. I'm not playing anything, Oliver. You're the one who betrayed our marriage vows. A cruel smile crept across his lips. Oh, Kira, always so naive. He set the mug down with a dull thud. Did you really think this was just about Sandra? A sickening realization washed over me as his words sank in. This went far deeper than a simple affair. You were planning something, with her. My voice trembled with a potent mix of anger and fear. Oliver's smile widened, sending a chill down my spine. Very perceptive. Though I have to admit, I didn't expect you to catch on so quickly. He crossed the room in 2 strides, looming over me menacingly. You see, Sandra and I have grown quite close, bonded over our mutual disdain for our respective spouses. I recoiled as the weight of his words hit me. You can't be serious. Dead serious. His gaze bored into me with unsettling intensity. We've been making plans, Kira, fun little schemes to liberate ourselves from our shackles. My heart thudded in my ears as the pieces fell into place. The late nights, the hushed whispers, it had all been part of a sinister plot. That's why you've been insisting on cooking lately, I murmured more to myself than him. With my allergy. Oliver's eyes glinted with malice. Very good. I was going to make us a lovely seafood linguine for dinner. Maybe add a dash of crab bisque for good measure. The casual way he discussed ending my life turned my blood to ice. This was no longer the charming man I'd fallen for. This was a monster. "You're insane," I spat, backing away in revulsion. With a speed that belied his bulk, Oliver lunged forward, slamming me against the wall. His forearm pressed against my windpipe as he leaned in close, his rancid breath hot on my face. "I'm just getting started, my dear." His voice was a guttural snarl. "And by the time I'm through, you'll be begging for that linguine." As his grip tightened, blackness crept into the edges of my vision. In that moment, I was utterly powerless, a prisoner in my own home. But even through the fog of fear, a flicker of determination burned within me. Oliver wouldn't win this twisted game. One way or another, I would make him pay. "Here, you might need this more than I do." The kindly voice of Mrs. Thompson, my neighbor, broke through the fog as she pressed a bottle of wine into my hands. I accepted it gratefully, managing a weak smile. "Trust me, I need all the liquid courage I can get." Though it had been 2 weeks since that fateful night when Oliver's true colors were unveiled. 2 weeks of walking on eggshells, never knowing when his violent outbursts might resurface. But I had a plan. A risky gambit that could either free me from this waking nightmare or plunge me deeper into its depths. I just needed to muster the strength to see it through. Later that evening, as Oliver puttered around the kitchen, I steeled my nerves and set my trap. "Honey," I called out in my sweetest tone, "I was thinking we could have a nice romantic dinner tonight. Maybe? Seafood linguine?" I watched his face closely, fighting to keep my expression neutral, as his eyes lit up with dark delight. "You read my mind, babe." The endearment dripped like poison from his lips. "I'll whip up something extra special, just for you." As he busied himself with the pots and pans, I made my move. Fumbling in my pocket, I hit record on my phone and slipped it into my waistband, the microphone perfectly positioned to catch every word. By the time Oliver served up the steaming plates of linguine, I could barely mask my revulsion, but I played along, taking a bite and forcing myself to chew slowly, buying time. "This is amazing," I lied, my mouth filled with sawdust. "You really outdid yourself." Oliver preened under the praise, his ego clearly stroked. "Well, I wanted to make it an unforgettable meal." His eyes glittered with undisguised malice. "After all, it'll be our last together." There it was, the damning confession I needed. I fought to keep my expression neutral as he continued. "Once you've passed on, Sandra and I can finally be together. Start fresh, without any dead weight holding us back." My heart pounded in my ears, but I refused to show fear. Not now, not when I was so close. As the night wore on, Oliver grew more brazen, detailing his sordid plans with almost gleeful relish. All the while, my phone faithfully recorded every vile word. Finally, when he'd said more than enough to bury himself, I allowed the act to drop. "You really are a piece of work, you know that?" I spat, hurling my plate across the room where it shattered against the wall. Oliver's face contorted in rage as he realized my ruse. "You little." But I was already moving, my phone gripped tightly as I sprinted for the door. His meaty hands closed around my arm, but I wrenched free, driven by a primal need for survival. Out on the street, I didn't stop running until I was safely ensconced in the nearby police precinct. It was over. The beginning of my new life had finally begun.